Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, hanging out with the coolest lady on earth, Miss Nancy Stone today. We're talking about coroner to corporate, really breaking down what kind of that niche business, how do you get into something like that and moving all the way forward to a corporate gig as an investigator. This is going to be a really cool interview.
Let me tell y'all out there a little story, man, and it goes a little something like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, hanging out with the coolest lady on earth, Miss Nancy Stone today. We're talking about coroner to corporate, really breaking down what kind of that niche business, how do you get into something like that and moving all the way forward to a corporate gig as an investigator. This is going to be a really cool interview. Miss Nancy Stone, I am so happy that you are here with us. Welcome to the madness that it's called the Corporate Security Translator Podcast. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let me tell you something. From the first time we met, I'm like, this is cool. My little time as a cop, I used to, hate dealing with dead people. And I said, man, how do you kind of get in, like dead person, coroner investigator into like a corporate gig investigation with Facebook? I thought that was really cool. So I'm going to have a lot of questions for you throughout this entire thing. We're going to break some stuff down for all the folks that are kind of transitioning from the military, law enforcement, emergency services, and the federal careers. And then even now coroners, man, I might have to throw coroners in there too, because there's a lot of that happening, or any of those kinds of folks, man. So look, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to let you tell the folks a little bit about yourself, and then let's break this down. I am intrigued.
Yeah, let's do this. And if it makes you feel any better, most of the cops that I worked with also did not like dead bodies. I always knew that it was a real situation when I showed up to a scene or a house and they're still waiting in the streets and they're like, you go in. This is all you.
Yeah. So, I told you that we could definitely talk about this. Like, I got this other podcast.
Whole separate podcast.
Yeah, BSing about security, and we'll just throw that story in there. It would be fun. But yeah, tell us. What was your story? How did you do this?
So I was a criminal justice major in college, kind of, I believe, like yourself. That's and right. I decided that I didn't want to be a cop, but I still, I really enjoyed the field and kind of discovered this world of death investigation. And so my professors encouraged me to do internships and through the county and whatnot. And so I kind of worked my way through a bunch of internships and kind of work like that. And eventually it was a pretty tough job to get. And so I finally got it. And it was an amazing career, very different, as you can imagine.
Hell no.
But it was kind of this cross between, science and law enforcement. And we joked that we wore many hats, also like therapists, because we were doing family members. And, but I got to a place, I kind of thought that I was going to be doing, like, this was going to be my forever career. Like, this is what I wanted to do.
Right.
And after, many years in the field, I kind of got to a place where I was looking for more career development. And unfortunately, the agency that I was working at, as wonderful as it was very small and didn't have a lot of room for growth. Right. And so I was kind of posed with this, kind of like fork in the road. Like, do I go to another agency that's bigger and try, I would have to start from the ground up again, working nights and all at the bottom of the totem pole, and try to work my way up there. Or tech was kind of starting, like this whole, a lot of my friends were in tech. We were like mid to mid 20s, early 30s. And so I was kind of encouraged to start looking into the tech space. And I didn't really realize that there was this whole sector of tech that's dedicated to like law enforcement, like liaisons and, dealing with like security. And I mean, every single company kind of does it differently based on the type of platform they have. So it was a little daunting, but that was the decision I made was, okay, I think I'm actually going to try to go into tech because they market themselves as this very creative space with like lots of room for opportunity and growth and fast paced and ambiguity. So I decided to go for it.
Oh, and here you are. Here you are.
Yeah.
And so there is kind of like this, I mean, it's super niche what you do.
Yeah.
There's not even like just the thought of, by the way, just the thought of manipulating dead people. I had to do it a couple of times when I was a cop, and I just didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. But I mean, that was your chosen path. That was your chosen career. That's probably what you love to do for a very long time. But it is very niche. There's not many people in the world doing it. So how do you go from that to corporate, investigations?
Yeah, I really struggled with that actually for a little bit. And I wish I had either, I don't know what kind of resources maybe I missed out on, but there certainly wasn't as many as there are now, so, especially like this podcast and just on LinkedIn, there's just infinite resources. But it caused me a lot of I was distressed because, I was like, I have this goal in mind and I have no idea how to get there. And I am an investigator for, death investigations. How the heck am I going to market myself from this very niche position into the corporate world? And so what I started with, and I was fortunately, I had a friend that worked at Apple and she was very encouraging. And then another friend that was close to me who was also just personally encouraging and said, okay, here's what I think you should do is you need to really dedicate your time, instead of going home and dilly-dallying and going to the gym and just doing whatever in the evenings, go home and apply for jobs. And that was my first, that was the first thing I did is just started applying to jobs en masse. I would look around my my house really and be like, what are the companies that I subscribe to and that I like I'm wearing a Fitbit, I like that, what does Fitbit have to offer? And I was really starting from nothing, where I would just go through LinkedIn and look for keywords okay, some of these companies call it a law enforcement response team, and other call it trust and safety. And what is trust and safety? I didn't even, every single company kind of call, and they're starting to become more uniform, but they all kind of have different titles for different, for different jobs, and it can be very confusing. And so I would sit there and I would make a list of, all of these jobs that I saw on LinkedIn, and I would cross them out as I sent my resume in. And started paying attention to, okay, what does trust and safety mean? What does the law enforcement operations mean? What's an analyst mean? And so that's what I would do. I'd create these lists, cross them off, send out as many applications as I could. It was like a numbers game. And that's one of the first things that I tell people now is that it's really a numbers game, especially.
So see, it's like a process, and it almost a part-time job. It's like a part-time gig when you're trying to get a gig, though you already have a gig. I like some of the things that you said. One of them, you got to get out there, start applying, but then really investigating, which is funny because that's what you do. Investigating what the job descriptions actually said in order to figure out, because you're right. The tech companies especially, they create these jobs that the title, you go, what in the world is that? It's under global security or something like that, or whatever other line of business under the lawyers, or sometimes under even real estate. But you never know. These titles are so weird. So the process of going out there. So I gotta do a little clap for you, because congratulations, you did a heck of good work there. But I like what you were talking about, the job descriptions, and then were you differentiating your resume to each job that you were applying for, or was it like a one-size-fits-all resume that you were sending in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple of things to note there. One, I like you mentioned, this was a full-time job, right? So I was spending all my evenings just sending resumes, weekends, sending out resumes. That was another thing I struggled with was, oh my gosh, I have not, touched my resume in years, and I've been in this very particular field. I had no idea what to do, and I felt kind of daunted by a lot of the resources online. And so I actually opted to put my personal time towards my researching the types of jobs. And I actually hired a resume editor, to a resume writer to assist me with how to curate the rhetoric of the resume, to do that. I know not everyone has that, the resources to do that, but if you do, I highly recommend it. I want to plug the guy that did mine and helped me with mine. His name's Kolby Goodman. He's on LinkedIn.
Big time Kolby Goodman. Now I'll make sure that he gets some of this. And so wait, first of all, he was good. Or
Yes.
did he just set something up for you? Did he understand what you were trying to do? Because I've had some people come to me and say, I paid $250, $500, whatever it was. I seen either up to like $1,000 to work on their resume, but they were very like business related resume, not really focused on kind of what I call under the criminal justice entities, which is any security jobs or everything else. But this guy was good.
Yeah, he, that's what I liked about him. We had a phone call and he kind of probed me on like what I was already doing and tried to understand what I had been doing previously and what I was trying to do, and kind of taught me how like the proper way to word exactly how I was trying to get my skills across. And I mean, it really paid for itself, because after that initial resume that I got help with, I was able to then just continue to follow that as I was able to add to my resume over the years. And so, and it
was like a template. So he hooked you up with an awesome template. Yeah. And then from there, you were able to kind of modify it as needed. And I could just imagine what that first conversation with Kolby was. So what do you do? I see dead people. I see dead people. And then he's like, okay, how do we translate that into, I wish I would have been there, like a little fly on the wall, just see when you first tell the guy, I play with dead people.
Yeah, I get it. And it's either excitement or complete silence. There's no in between when I tell people about that. But I do also, while we're plugging people, we still want to remind everyone that you don't always have to pay for it either. You can always, Amanda put out that great resume resource. There are resources online.
That's right.
Focus on my time on just figuring out what the heck some of these jobs were.
Right.
So I know you mentioned earlier, like we were talking about how to translate skills. And something I wish I had a little more confidence in when I was initially doing this process was, reading through some of these job recs on LinkedIn can be super daunting because they're peppered with all of this tech jargon, cross-functional collaboration, partnerships, ambiguity, analyst. And so I've actually pulled up two job recs from LinkedIn that are in the like law enforcement, fraud world. And I thought I could like pull some of these words and kind of how maybe I would have translated these, because at the end of the day, when you dissect a lot of this, it's already stuff that people in law enforcement and the public sector are already doing.
Yeah.
You just don't really realize it because it's worded so differently.
So this is key. Look, if you're listening right now, this is a great opportunity. Make sure you grab that pen. If you don't have a pen on you right now, we're about to go over the translation of what a job description looks like out in the tech world as you're trying to, come out from these law enforcement and emergency services, military, out of these jobs. So here we go.
Okay.
I'm pumped.
It's really not
ready.
that crazy.
Hey, guide us through it.
Okay. So, and I'll caveat this with, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, but for example, pulled up one from Netflix. It's called a legal operations coordinator on the law enforcement response team. And so like the first thing that I remember I would look at is say, okay, there's a thing called a law enforcement response team. And I'd make note of that and start looking for, in LinkedIn, I'd plug more like law enforcement response teams, like what other companies have these. But in the requirements, let's break this down. Prior experience responding to legal requests from law enforcement authorities and consumers. So like as a coroner, that sounds like, it's a little daunting to be like, well, these legal requests, authorities, consumers, like I don't work at a business.
Right.
The thing I think to remember also is a lot of these requirements are not, they're not like the final word. Like, you can still send in your resume and it doesn't mean that you have to hit every single one of these. And I think I definitely got that was hard for me because I didn't realize that at the time.
And 80%, and 80% got me my master's. So I'm cool. A C got me through college, right?
Right, so got a C.
C gets me a degree. All right, I got it. All right, go ahead.
So apply anyways. Okay, so prior experience responding legal requests. As a coroner, I was the one with the legal request. Like I was working with district attorneys. They were sending me legal requests. Perfect. I was like, working cross-functionally, as they like to say in tech, with the FBI, DEA, like all of these federal agents. And so I was I could say, processed legal requests. Not only did I create reports that were eventually, legal documents, but I worked with other agencies and responded to their legal requests.
Perfect.
Strong analytical skills with the ability to review data and identify trends. Kind of sounds a little daunting, but like, if I'm thinking about it, all of our death certificates death certificates created for data, essentially,
Right.
like, yes, for cause of death and stuff, and to give an answer as to what happened. But at the end of the day, a lot of that is for data purposes. And so like, I could have said something like, if we're seeing a trend with a type of drug that people are
Right.
overdosing with, like, that's a trend. Like, I'm analyzing data.
That was a
Right.
huge trend in the
Huge trend,
mid 2000s and all the way to mid 2015
Right.
or so. That was like the trend.
Right. And like, and even in a small county, in a small agency that I worked in, like, if I'm going out to a lot of these cases and I'm realizing that there is a trend with the type of drugs that people are using and overdosing with, if there's something specific, then you bring that up. I mean, yes, it's not like the type of data online that you might be working with at tech, but you can still use those examples, especially in your resume, to kind of indicate that you have an analytical skill, right? And that's what it's asking for. And a lot of these other things are like ability to maintain a positive attitude in ambiguous situations. Most of these job recs are talking about ambiguous situations. I mean, there is something to be said about how the public sector has more defined processes, but I mean, you're always working with ambiguity. So it's pretty easy to find.
I think when you show up to like a crazy death,
exactly.
Like, well, that's ambiguous.
Like your whole job, a lot of investigators in the public sector, their whole job is to investigate an ambiguous situation, right?
Yes.
Like, and figure out what happened. So I'll pull up another one. Let's see.
While you pull up another one, I'll make a comment that it's funny that what it seems like you were doing, it's almost similar to, so in the book that I write on, I say, take a job description. If you're going to interview for that job, now you're interviewing for that job and you have the job description in front of you. So yours is kind of like presetting, trying to translate it. And I love that. But I talk about in the book, if you're going to now interview for the job, you take that job description, you look at every line that's on the job description. You create a story out of each and every single one of those lines of what you've done in the past, translate it to what you've done for the interview itself. Yep. And what you're doing is like a continuation of this, or actually a prior. So we're playing the episode before of what I write in the book, which is genius in what you're doing. So please continue on. This is great.
I'm so glad. So, okay, this is a criminal investigator for TikTok. We've got, like, again, one of the first things is expert in-depth knowledge of criminal and civil investigations in an enterprise environment. I think when I was starting out, I would have been a little put off by like enterprise environment. Oh my gosh, I don't work for a company, but I can't stress enough, like, apply anyways.
Yep, because you can translate that. You
can. And a lot of the jobs that we're doing in tech, people have never, because tech is new and a lot of these jobs are new, therefore no one has ever done these jobs before, so you can't really be expected to have done this job before, right?
So, I mean, you're literally, when you get there, you're going to create it. And we do have that a lot in the tech world. Congratulations, you arrived. We don't really know where to go with this. You own it, run with it.
Yeah. And that, when I talk to others who are trying to go into the tech world or private sector, that's one of the first things I remind them of is, it might seem like we all have it together, but like we don't. Like, we're figuring this all out. Like, it's, in a good way, you get to be creative, but there's not,
True.
There's more process in the public sector because it's been founded for so long. Whereas here, when you have a new job that's never been done before, you're creating the process. So here you go. Like, you show up and I've worn so many hats within my, tech career that I never thought I would wear. I'm an investigator, but I'm also working on like a career development pillar with,
you're
Amanda.
A project manager now.
Right.
Now you're a PMP.
That's the other thing. A lot of these jobs are talking about program managers and project managers. And I think that can be kind of intimidating. But how many of us in the public sector already were doing projects aside from like our investigations, working on other stuff,
Absolutely.
other projects that you can translate into your interviews and to market yourself.
Absolutely.
And I wish I had kind of thought about that more too. I mean, when I was they talk a lot about cross-functional relationships, and I'm like, oh man, I was on this like fetal and infant mortality board, super uplifting, but that was a cross-functional relation. I was doing this with other people in the community that had expertise in this area. Like that was a cross-functional relationship that I probably should have marketed better.
Absolutely. Another one too that I get a lot too is the education piece, like a trainer, some kind of a trainer or something like that. A lot of people forget that law enforcement folks, either you're in an FTO, you're training somebody, or you're part of the training group, or you're always training somebody about something, about anything. And you got to be able to translate that too to those opportunities when they pop up that, you've been there, done that. But this is a perfect example of that. And it's amazing to me. Who would have thought about fetal? And we don't have to go into it, but again, this is how crazy like niche you are, because normal people are like, let's talk about what causes fetal death.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But that's what I'm saying. If I can do it, I mean, this is what I had a friend who reached out to me, or he wasn't a friend yet. We became friends because he reached out and was like, hey, I noticed that you were in law enforcement. Now you're not. How do I do this? Please help me. And we became friends. And that was one of the things I told him is I was like, listen, like if I can do this, you absolutely can do this. Like I was doing something that was not even close to what I'm doing now. And I was able to translate it over. So
I love it. So once you go through and you translate kind of all these job descriptions, you get a better idea of what it is. You get in your mind I used to do this. It was done this way instead of what they were asking for it here. And now we also realize that even what they were asking for, they a lot of times don't even know what they're asking for because it's never been done before. But now you get into this corporate gig that you don't know anything about, or it's your first time in this corporate gig. Let me ask you a couple of questions, and you tell me. So you get into this corporate gigs for the first time, because I know Facebook's not your first opportunity there, but so what is it that you're like, oh crap, I did not know about this, or man, this, oh no, oh whatever the oh crap that you went home with them. Tell me or the listeners, like anything it was like, oh, that's the difference. That's different.
Well, yeah, this is the first thing that comes to mind is how fast paced everything is. I mean, I was coming from, a county office where I had like a huge desktop. I never touched a Mac in my life. And so I get to, my first job in tech, and they're like, here's a Mac and here's all these toys. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I was like a child, like learning how to use this MacBook Pro, and it was pretty funny in hindsight. They're like, wow, you really picked that up, but it's such a fast paced environment. Things are changing constantly. I actually still kind of struggle with that, to be honest, like this constant, there's so many forms of communication. As a coroner, I was getting a couple emails a day, maybe a few phone calls, and then writing reports. And here it's like, email, Slack or Workplace, like all these different chats. I mean, Quip. You're getting it, Quip. I mean, you're getting it from every angle, and it's really hard to keep up with everything and do your work and your projects. And so I think things, priorities change at the drop of a hat. And so this whole just moving really quickly environment is, I think it's great on one hand because you can pivot and create your own opportunities and get to be really creative, but it can be very exhausting too. And so
very exhausting. It's like ambiguity is good, but sometimes not that good. And then change is good. But oh Lord Jesus, change all the time is not that good. And we'll get that. And it's, especially in the tech industry, because they move so fast, we got to get ahead of everybody else while they're doing something. So your mission might be one, and then tomorrow your mission is another one. It's like, oh Lord. Oh,
did you like that project? Well, time to sunset it. Good night. Like starting.
We're not working on that anymore. We're going to work on this now,
Yeah. So that can, that can be. And I think I was very used to, as a coroner, they had a 6-month, there was trainings abound, like a training to become a coroner. And then once you were in the agency, a 6-month training that FTO, you had to pass and all this stuff. And That doesn't exist in the tech world. You create the training, you know, like there's a, this is how we do it, but everything changes so quickly that, and if you see something that needs to have a process, I mean, there's your first project, you know, which is great because then you're kind of taking control of what needs to be done and where the gaps are. But it can be a little bit of a culture shock.
And the interesting thing that I've seen too, you could be on a job for 4 months. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're like the person that all the new people have to go to. So all of a sudden, you become the trainer of something. You've been only there for 4 months, and you go, "What? I'm the trainer?
Yeah.
Like I'm still trying to figure out my ABCs here, man. Right. You know, all of a sudden, I'm the trainer. But that's how fast it moves. That's how crazy it is.
That's such a good point. Yeah. Right. In law enforcement, it's like, 6 months, like you're barely out the womb, so calm down. And here it's like, oh, you're a senior now.
Yeah, you look at tech companies, you see like somebody that's been there for a year, they're like in the top 75% of anybody ever hired. And you go, how did you move up 25% in 5 months? Yeah. You know, that's just how crazy it goes. I mean, that's just how it works. But look, we got. I know, you know, this kind of goes fast, and I told you it goes really, really fast. Yeah. So we got about four minutes left or so, and it's been a lot of good stuff. I've been taking notes. I'm back in school right now. I'm loving this. Teach me something, as we say in Brazil. Professora, teach me something. So, I mean, a lot of great stuff. But usually, you know, I like to leave the folks that are listening with a couple of like tidbits or a couple of tips as they are looking through this transition or going through it or just trying to figure out where they are. Maybe they're 5 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out. Or they're right in the middle of like, oh, Lord, I started too late and I need a job today because I'm sitting at home now for the past 3 months without a gig. So here it is. A couple of minutes here to just kind of break down maybe a tip or 2 or 3 of whatever you think they need to know as they transition. So let them have it.
Okay. So I think the first thing that I mentioned was, remember, it's a numbers game. I think everyone has mentioned to me how like daunting and how they get really down on themselves. I got down on myself because it's like you're just sending all of these resumes out and applying, and most of the time you never hear anything back, and that's just kind of the nature of the game. So don't get down, keep applying. Something that I did not do that I am very like, I guess maybe proud is not the right word, but like I think highly of people that do this because I would have been too scared to. But a lot of people just like reach out on LinkedIn, like cold call, and just like, hey, like that guy that I mentioned previously, who's now my friend, kind of just cold called me and was like, hey, like I, you know, work for this police department and I really want to get into, you know, the private sector and how to do that. And I remember I actually wrote him back and kind of flaked on him at first because I got really busy, and I kind of like unintentionally, I just kind of like got busy. And
get ready, you're about to get a bunch more calls right now.
Yeah. And for me I would have been like, oh my gosh, I don't want to keep bothering him or whatever. And he was very persistent. It was like, hey, like, you know, I really would like to chat. And I just admired the persistence. And I think, you know, reaching out to people and just being persistent with outreach. I think there are a lot of people out there that do want to help. I know I have done it, and sometimes I don't get a response. I'm like, that's okay too. But there are a lot of people that do want to help, and like me, who are very grateful that others have helped me get to where I am, and so I'm happy to pay it forward. So I think just trying the cold call, reaching out to people. There's also a lot of companies provide incentive for those that want to refer. So I know a lot of people are generally happy to refer. I'd say choose wisely, only because I think there's rules internally for many companies where you can only have one referral per job. So make sure it's a job you really want. But I would say outreach is definitely, I've seen become helpful for others. So I would recommend that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I usually talk about back then your resume would get you through the door, right? In the interview door. But now today, that person that you know that you made contact with, you got to create a relationship with, that's inside the building, that person can get you into the building that later on will get you through the door of the interview, because now we're out on the sidewalk now. You're not even inside the building trying to get through the door of the interview. You're on the sidewalk just trying to get into the building. And people like yourself, big time Nancy Stone, can help people get through that. And that's it. But look, I truly appreciate your time. This is great to give back a little bit to the folks that are trying to transition.
Definitely.
Everybody, please check out, Nancy Stone on LinkedIn. That's right. I mean, you might get bothered a little bit. Sorry, but that's
Okay,
how
I'm
it
happy
works
to
out
pay
here.
it forward. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
So, but I just want to thank you. Thank you very much, Clapperoo, for you coming out and taking your time to do this. This is really big for me and everybody out there. So thank you. And everybody out there. So we covered a bunch of stuff. Look, I got so many notes here from the professora, as we said. Look, it's going to be like a part-time job. You're going to have to do a lot of research, or even what these job description means. Don't feel left out. Like, if you're not getting the call back and everything, you just got to keep on going. So don't feel down on yourself. You got to translate the job descriptions. You got to break down the JDs later on and make sure that it fits with what you've done in the past. Look at this. I get so many notes here. This is crazy. We got what do we got? Learn new technologies when you start with a new company. Get ready, because there's going to be a bunch of us stuff. They move really, really fast, so be comfortable with constant change. I mean, so many great things that we covered on this one today. So once again, I'd like to thank Ms. Nancy Stone for coming out with us. I want to thank everybody for listening. Here I am, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security. Signing out one more time and another great podcast from Mrs. Nancy Stone. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
You are awesome. All right. Take care, everyone.